Welcome to P3 Radio.
The monkey only dances as good as the guy grinding the organ handle.
Demolition! We're coming for you, baby!
That was my moment of I carried a watermelon.
And if you're going to call me back tomorrow, whatever,
You better believe I took my turn with little Teddy.
What?
Cool story, bro.
PG3 Radio.
Nope.
Here's your host, Josh Bradley.
Ladies and gentlemen, next up we have crying little blind children.
Richard Mullican.
I don't know. Is this making any sense to anybody out there?
It's showtime! It's showtime! It's showtime!
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to another episode of P3 Radio. I'm Richard Mullican, joined by my co-host and best friend, Josh Briley. Say hey, Josh.
Richard, I got my Black Dahlia Murder t-shirt on. I am ready to headbang.
Well, you certainly have that stuff on because we're interviewing one of the headbangers, Thrasher, Glen Ruth, today on P3 Radio.
He was a super cool guy, and I think, if we could ever have anybody back, it would be him.
Yeah, I mean, even though we say that every week, we really mean it with Thrasher. Glen Ruth was one of our best guests we've ever had. Super nice and just wonderful to talk to. Wish we could have had more time with him. Maybe we'll have him back, but it was awesome to have him on. But we will be back with that interview after a word from this sponsor.
From Wine of the Month Club.
When you go shopping for wine, do you look at the labels? Do you stare at the price and wonder if the wine is worth the expensive tag? Well, stop it, because Wine of the Month Club has you covered. Every month, Wine of the Month Club is going to send you 2 bottles of high-quality wine right to your front door.
And what better way to say I'm thinking of you than a subscription to the original Wine of the Month Club for a friend or a sweetheart. Each month they'll be reminded of your thoughtfulness and will receive the monthly wine letter and newsletter binder. Recipes, wine knowledge, and great wine, and the opportunity to get more of their favorites is at hand. Give with confidence and joy, knowing that you're a part of the original Wine of the Month Club.
By the way, there are no dues, no fees, no hidden charges. Cancel anytime with no obligation. Just pay no more than $23.96 plus shipping for 2 great bottles of wine. Go there now. Sign up by visiting our link, tinyurl.com/P3wine. That's tinyurl.com/P3wine. The Wine of the Month Club, the original wine club since 1972. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us right now on the P3 Radio Hotline, former WWF Tag Team Champion, one half of the Headbangers. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Headbanger Thrasher, Glen Ruth. Glen, thanks for being here with us, man.
Man, you had one chance to make a first impression, and you said Glen Roth.
Ruth. I said
what
Ruth.
in the... No, not the first time you did. Rewind that.
I said Thrash.
Rewind that.
I said Thrash.
No. Even before that. You'll hear it, and you go, oh, my God, what a schmuck I am.
Let me do it properly then. Joining us right now on the P3 Hotline, we have former WWF Tag Team Champion and one half of the Headbangers. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Headbanger Thrasher, Glen Ruth. Glen, thanks for being here with us on P3 Radio.
There you go. So we can just cut out the fuck up that you had in the beginning. Oh, can I say fuck?
Yes, please. We encourage it.
Okay, good.
Growing
What's up, guys? How are you guys?
Doing good, man. Doing good. How about you?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm down here in the sunny state of Florida just enjoying everything.
Nice. Staying away from that snow of the Northeast right now. They're getting hit pretty hard.
That's exactly why I moved away from there, man. I was born and raised in South Jersey. Both me and Chaz were. So, yeah, we both are down here now. And I wish I would have done it sooner.
Growing up, did you watch any other wrestling besides WWF?
When I first, I guess, when I was younger, I used to watch WWF when it used to come from the Philadelphia Spectrum, and they used to wrestle there once a month. And it used to be broadcasted on Prism TV. This is, going way back when even, when cable had the box and the dial on the side and the buttons and everything else.
Right.
So way back when. So, yeah, I never was really a huge, I guess, fan of professional wrestling, but it was always something interesting and stuff like that. I mean, back there, the guys were huge. You had Andre the Giant. You had, Big John Studd, Hogan. You had all these. They were just ginormous. And when I was in high school, I was 6'4", 150 pounds. Dripping wet. That's exactly what I weighed, and it was, it was such a far cry from something that I could see myself doing. To once I graduated high school, I played football and I wrestled in high school and stuff like that. So then, that's when the interest started coming up. Is I didn't have that physicality in my life, so I had to find a way to channel it. I guess you want to say. Right. So, I went into the Monster Factory, Larry Sharp, Pretty Boy Larry Sharp School. It was in Paulsboro, New Jersey, and I just fell in love with it. It was, it's weird. Everybody says, oh, my God, bumping hurts. Oh, my God, I love it. I love it. It's that physicality, and it's that camaraderie. It's that brotherhood that you get with the other guys and everything else. So I guess I fell in love with it after I actually started.
Yeah. That's something that we both had in common. Josh and I, Josh, he didn't go the professional wrestling route, and I did. And both of us had been in a ring, and especially when we went to see Danny and OVW. And the whole time, we're sitting there falling, and we're like, man, this kind of hurts. But when you start doing it, and you're going on the road every weekend, it was something about being around those guys and having that adrenaline rush and hearing that crowd.
Yeah.
Nothing hurts. Nothing hurts.
It's so funny. It's almost like it's addicting, like getting a tattoo. The tattoos, when they first do them, they hurt.
Right.
But after a while, it starts feeling good, and and that adrenaline starts going and everything else, and you're like, oh, man, that looks really good. Oh, my God. Then you have like 10 of them, and you're all tattooed up. So I consider it like the same thing. As it's a pain, but it's one of those pains that you get addicted to. Yes.
Well, you mentioned the legendary Monster Factory and that you trained there, and I'd heard that you had started helping train after you
did.
How long was you working, or how long after that you had been trained that you started helping train others?
I started in 1991. It was June of 1991, and I went in there. It was so funny. I was never a big fan or anything else. So I roll into this. Larry Sharp would send out free tryout postcards to all the graduating seniors that were athletes. And he would just send them. It was awesome. It was great marketing. So I always had that like on my refrigerator, my bedside table, and stuff like that. And I went to a computer school over in Philadelphia, and I learned computer operations. So I was doing that for a while, and I absolutely hated it because it was garbage. And then I was like, you know what? I was doing a wrestling match. It was an AAU tournament, and it was at Paulsboro High School. And right across the street from it was the Monster Factory. So we had a break in the action and stuff like that. So I went over there, and I was looking through the windows, and I was like, oh, man, that's so cool. That's so cool. So then, I started working, doing the operations thing, and that was always in the back of my mind. So I said, you know what, one day I'm just going to go up there. So I went up there, and I walked in, and there's all these lights and cameras and everything else all over the place. And I'm going, oh, my God, this is awesome. This is freaking awesome. Here, Australia TV was doing a special on Larry Sharp and the Monster Factory. Wow. So what he had you do is you went into the ring and you did a tryout. So he showed you how to run the ropes. There's a right and a wrong way of running ropes, which we all know that. Yeah. He didn't tell you which one was right, which way was wrong. He just said run the ropes. And then he showed you how to do the 3 basic falls. Mm-hmm. So because in wrestling, the hardest thing to do is to fall straight back on your back and not put your arms down. I mean, that's a natural reaction when you're falling. Put your arms down or roll over. Right. So just trying to get that out of your head is a feat by itself. So I'm sitting there, and there was like 7 or 8 guys with us that went through the tryout. And I'm sitting there going, nervous as hell. I'm about 170 pounds now, 180. And I'm going, oh, my God, I what the hell's going on? So this first guy goes in the office. He comes back out. He goes, he told me no. I went, oh, my God, he told you no. He told you no. Oh, my God, I don't. I'm just going to leave. I'm just going to leave right now. So then the second guy comes out, and he goes, he told me no, too, and I had $3,000 cash in my hand.
Jeez.
That made me stay because that made Larry so credible that he wasn't just taking anybody's money.
Right.
He was taking the people that he saw something in. So I went in there, and I said, listen, Mr. Sharp, before you say anything, let me just go and gain some weight and get over 200 pounds, and then let me come back and let me try then. And he goes, listen, kid, it's a lot easier to teach you all these flips and jumps and everything else at 180 pounds than it is at 220. That made so much sense to me. I went home. I got $1,500. I came back the next day, gave it to him, gave him $100 a week for 15 weeks. And then within 6 months, I was wrestling in Japan against Giant Baba. I was tag team with Stan Hansen, Danny Spivey. I wrestled against Kamala, Abdullah the Butcher.
Yikes.
6 months in the business, and I was in awe. I was green than green could be, but Larry found a way, because he was friends with Dory Funk, and found a way to get me over there. It was actually when the Nasty Boys signed with Vince the first time.
Right.
So I went over at that time. So that was back in '91, and I guess I was around the Indies and stayed, loyal, faithful to the Monster Factory and Larry and stuff like that. I had offers to go to USWA and Smoky Mountain, with Cornette and then Jerry Lawler, because Larry would bring them in once a month and do shows, and you would get to know these guys.
Right.
So I guess it was back in, I want to say 92, 93-ish, is when I started actually training guys coming in. And, one of the guys was Chaz. I trained Chaz. I helped train D'Lo Brown and Paul White, which everybody knows is the Big Show.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
But Big Show will never, ever say he trained at the Monster Factory. But sure as shit as I'm sitting here, he did. He absolutely 100% did. There's pictures of him down there at the factory and stuff like that. He actually did the majority of his training. I think he was there maybe a month. I mean, you got a 7'2" guy. And let me tell you, when Paul first came down to this school, he was unbelievably gifted with athletic ability. It was unreal.
Right.
He could stand on the apron and jump straight up and land inside the ring.
Wow.
He had an incredible, he was unbelievable. He was 7'2", and I think he was maybe 350, 375 when he first started training, because he came from the Boston Celtics farm team, is what we were told. So I don't know how much is true, but I mean, that's what we were told. He came from the Boston Celtics farm team, and he was playing basketball, but he didn't like it. So he had a sponsor, and I say that with my fingers up in the air, somebody that sponsored to bring him wherever he wanted to go and put up the money for the school and stuff like that and everything else. But, yeah, he got scooped up really quick and went to WCW, where he trained at the power plant.
Right.
So most of his training was at the power plant and stuff like that. But it was a big deal to actually have Larry have the confidence in me, because at that time Larry was, trying not to get in the ring as much. He was, kind of winding down his days in the ring, and his bump card was full. And so, yeah, it was an honor. It was nice to be his first, I guess, student trainer that he ever had. Before that, he never let anybody else train except himself. He would say he had this big giant movie chair, and he would sit in it, and he would just sit there and direct, sitting there smoking his cigar and everything else. So yeah, it was definitely a great experience from day one. I mean, he just learned the from the inside out. So we learned how to put up the ring. My first week, every day after practice, take the ring down. Put it back up.
Right.
Take it down. Put it up tomorrow morning. Every single time. And, he would open the school from Thursday to Sunday. And at 6 o'clock on Thursday, I'll tell you what, there was a shit ton of people there. And on Saturday or Sunday, you had to kick us out, when it was time to go and stuff like that, because we spent all day there. We had a training school that we could go and we could spend as much time as we wanted to with nothing, and we had everything. And I look around to some of these kids today and stuff like that. And, we have a couple great schools down here. We have our FEW, Fighting Evolution Wrestling, that me and Chaz are actually currently involved with right now. They have an awesome training facility, and, kids don't take full advantage of it. And it's heartbreaking to sit back here and go, oh, my God, if I had what they had, it would be crazy. It would just,
We talked to one of your friends, actually somebody that knows you from back in the day, Flash Flanagan, and he was talking about, when we interviewed him, he was talking about how when he started training, he found this building with a ring, and he said, we went by it one time, and I was thinking, all right, I don't see anybody here, so if nobody shows up in the next couple of days, I'm just going to break in and steal this ring.
And you know what? For Flash to say that, I believe it 100%. Flash is a great guy. It was great seeing him, on TV the other night as a medic, and I love Flash. Awesome. Flash is a good guy.
Yeah. Now, just to go back to you saying putting up the rings and stuff like that, just to clarify, for some of you listeners out there that it's never put up a ring, imagine that some of your friends came to you and said, hey, today we're going to put up a 20 by 20 deck, and then we're going to tear it all down at the end of the show. That is pretty much it takes a long time to build that ring, and it's not fun, and it's part of paying your dues, and a lot of the guys now don't do it. But it's an awesome feeling when you get it done, and you're like, yes, but it's such a tragic feeling to have to tear it back down.
Yep.
And it was so weird. I never understood the reasoning behind that. And I finally, one day, it was about 6 months later, Larry would constantly do that. It was every Saturday or Sunday we would either take the ring down and put it back up. We did it constantly once a week for as long as I can remember. And I always said to him, I said, what is the purpose of these guys doing this all the time? It just looks like busy work. For one, it straightens the ring back up. It squares it up. He said for another thing, he goes, when you're a construction worker, don't you know what kind of tools are in your tool belt?
Right.
Exactly.
I said, yeah. He goes, don't you want to know what you're working in?
Oh, yeah.
That was enough. That was enough for me. I never questioned him again ever about anything that he ever said to me. But it was the fact that everybody back then thought it was a trampoline and it was all padded and everything else. Absolutely, there's pads in there. Trampoline, not so much.
Not so much.
But
no.
The padding and stuff like that. When you put a canvas on top of that and tie it down to the side rails of a ring, they don't understand. But that cushion just gets compressed. So that cushion may start off being, 2 inches thick, but by the time they put that canvas down and tighten it down, it might be a half inch, inch, tops. So so sometimes falling on a nice patch of grass is equivalent to falling in a wrestling ring.
You wrestled a laundry list of stars your first couple of years on WWF TV. Who got you booked on those shows?
Larry Sharp. It was funny because everybody always told me, hey, don't go up there, don't get beat up, you'll never get a job up there. Don't go up there and do jobs. Don't do that. You're killing yourself in the business. But Larry, he looked at me and he goes, listen, he goes, I understand. He goes, but it's a lot harder, or it's a lot easier beating somebody up and making it look real. Right. He goes, but it's a lot harder getting your ass kicked and make it look believable. He goes, trust me. He goes, go up there. Let them see you. Let them see, everything that you can do. And be quiet, sit there, shut up, and listen. And just listen to everybody talking in the locker room. And I did that for, I guess, 3 years. And it was awesome because, I saw a lot of the East Coast on, Vince's dollar. This is before he went, I guess, worldwide. And, he was still just running up and down the East Coast. And he went a little bit out west, but not too far, because it was still, a territory back then. Right. But, I can't ever complain because, I wrestled Flair twice. I've wrestled, tons of people. And, to have Ric Flair come up to you after you do a job for him and say, come here, kid, whatever they're paying you is not enough, and take me over to get his pay, and hands me an extra $100 and say, go buy a case of beer on me tonight because what you did for me was unbelievable. Just having that experience with Ric Flair, and he remembers it to this day. When I see him, through the conventions and stuff like that, he goes, you were that kid. You were that kid that one time with them crazy tights, with those crazy colored tights.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes, it was.
Well, you and Chaz, who would later on become Mosh as the Headbangers, you tagged together early on as the Spiders. In
Yes.
1994, you guys worked for Eastern Championship Wrestling, which is an organization that would later become Extreme Championship Wrestling. What do you remember about working for that ECW crowd at the time? Was it about the same as what we saw on TV every week?
It was just a one-shot deal. I think Axel and Ian, the Rotten Brothers, actually got us a tryout match. There is, we were just starting off. We were looking for work and stuff like that. So we went up to the ECW arena back then, and we did a match and stuff like that. And, I kind of saw the direction they were going. And at that time, it didn't feel like it was going to be a good fit for us. So we chose to go down to USWA and Smoky Mountain and stuff like that. I just, anybody can pick up a chair and hit somebody in the head with it.
Right.
But to have the psychology behind the why, there's always got to be a why a table's involved, why a kendo stick's involved, why a chair's. You have to have that why. Then if not, it's a free for all.
Right.
So I mean, I was one of the big guys that was very much into the psychology of a match, and building that proper house, that foundation, and getting the people invested. And I could kick myself because look what ECW turned out to be.
Right.
It had it actually developed into a whole different fan base. I mean, back then when I first started, I didn't think there was people that wanted to see that. And oh my God, they still want to see that today. So I mean, if it's done properly and everything else, I'm all for it.
Well,
give me a table. Give me a table, give me a chair, I'll swing them both the same way.
Well, speaking of Memphis, everybody always brings up that concession stand battle royal with Jerry Lawler, Dundee, and Wayne Ferris, and who else was it? Dennis Conner?
Larry Latham.
They always bring up that, and that's what I always say. I loved ECW, but for me, everything in ECW was trying to copy that. Now, that concession stand battle royal that they had chairs, everything but the popcorn machine, because they were told not to touch that. But they had
that was probably Lawler's.
It was Jarrett's. It was Jarrett's. He told him not to touch it because that was a money maker.
There you go.
So
there you go.
Everybody was trying to get that storyline, but that storyline was built over the course of weeks and weeks of television. So ECW was trying to copy that. But like I said, I loved ECW, but to me it was trying to copy that Southern, just bar fight that they would have, but it would lead up from weeks of TV.
And I was a big one that I guess that was against that whole, type of wrestling and stuff like that. But, I mean, after you watching it and you see the guys like Taz and you see Van Dam and you see the Dudley Boys and, everybody else, Tommy Dreamer and all the guys that have done it, and the way they told stories and the why behind the stuff that they did, it made you enjoy that type of wrestling. And everything else. And I can sit here now today and say I'm a huge mark for ECW and all the stuff that they did and everything else. Because, I had a chance to sit there. I wasn't educated enough back then when it first started to actually give it a chance. I was like, no, only the guys that don't know how to wrestle swing a kendo stick and, do all that stuff. No. And then, I guess it might have been 20 years ago when they did that whole invasion with and everything else, I started watching their stuff and everything else. And then you could see the build-up. It wasn't like Bubba and Devon just slid into the ring and grabbed the table and then you were through it. They built up into it. It was the excitement that built. And, yeah, I was a huge, ECW fan and everything else. I loved what we did, Invasion and stuff like that. I absolutely loved that. Because it elevated everybody. It elevated them. It elevated us. It showed competition. Because why do you like Coke? Because I don't like Pepsi.
Right.
Why did you like WWF? Because you didn't like WCW or ECW or anything else like that.
Right.
Why do you like them now? It's the only fucking thing to watch.
Well, when the Spiders debuted on Memphis TV, you guys had Bert Prentice as your manager.
Yes.
Do you have any good Bert stories you can share?
Bert was great. Bert, I'll tell you what, that guy, he will just, keep going. We saw him probably about 2 years ago at a convention and stuff like that. I love Bert to death. He was just he could squeeze a nickel and get $1 out of it. I mean, he was just amazing because after we left USWA, we went with him, and he started a federation called Ozark Mountain Wrestling. So, which was based out of Arkansas and stuff like that. We ran all up and down in Jonesboro and everybody over there. So, I mean, he put on these shows. This is no lie. There might have been 5 fans in the crowd. We had the headliner was Cactus Jack against the Colorado Kid. It was the Ozark Mountain champion at the time. Do you not know? Cactus Jack wrestled 45 minutes.
Wow.
Oh, my God.
Why? Because he didn't care if there was 5 people out there or 55,000 people out there or 5 million people. He was going out to perform in front of people. There was another lesson that I learned very early in wrestling. It doesn't matter how many people are there. They still paid to be entertained. So you go out there and you bust their ass, whether there's 10, 20, 1,000, 1 million people watching. You go out and you perform the same way.
Right.
And don't they tell you to do that in all the other sports that are out there?
Right.
Practice the way you're going to play.
Right. And now
So
you
there
brought
you
up Bert Prentice, and I've got to throw this at you because Bert's he's been running shows in Jackson, Tennessee, where we're from right now. And last year he was running a show. He was helping run a show in Henderson, Tennessee. It was one that King was on and everything. They do it every year. And at intermission, he was selling Easter eggs that had little notes in them, like "You won a prize, better luck next time." And he was selling them for 25 cents a piece. And King got mad at him because he had held intermission over to sell these eggs for another 20 minutes longer than intermission should have went.
It was so funny because Bert was the first one that taught us about merchandising. When we were the Spiders down there, he goes, "You guys are great." He goes, "You got a different look and everything else. You guys have 8x10s. What else?"
Right.
We're like, "Nothing." So he goes, "This is what I want you to do. Go out and buy carpet foam, draw a spider on it, buy paint stirrer sticks, and glue them to the back of the spider so people can hold it up and wave it around and stuff like that." So we started doing that, and it was awesome. And we started selling silly string and everything else. It was funny because then it caught on. Then there was these foam crowns that just popped up all over the place and stuff like that. So yes, he taught us, how to market yourself and make as much money off of the littlest possible that you can dish out. So that the Easter egg thing doesn't surprise me at all. Not at all.
Well, going a little further, did you have very much faith, no pun intended, in the Flying Nuns gimmick with Brother Love as your manager?
It was funny because when Smoky Mountain actually closed down, Jim Cornette said, "What I'm going to do is I'm going to get guys tryouts with Vince and everything else." We were the headbangers before we even got to WWF. Mm-hmm. Jerry or Jim Cornette actually gave us the headbanger gimmick. That's a whole story in itself. To picture Jim Cornette at a Glenn Danzig concert is just that's a sight I think I would pay to see. Yeah. I don't know. So he gave us the headbanger gimmick. So when Smoky Mountain actually closed, he got us a tryout at WWF with Vince and everybody watching and stuff like that, and we got signed to part-time contracts. And the part-time contracts were just straight up TV. That's all it was. It was TV. They were TV contracts because Vince wanted to get away from the jobber and have more challenging matches on Saturday morning and stuff like that, because then it elevates the talent even more.
Right.
It's smart. It's smart. That's why you don't see jobber matches now. If you do, there's some, it's not against Braun Strowman. That's for sure. Yeah, it was once we got up there and we did that and everything else, as Vince came up to us, he goes, "I got a great idea." He goes, "Did you ever see Sally Field in The Flying Nun?" I think that was the TV show, and I went, "No." He's like, "Yeah, she has this really big hat and she flies and everything else." He goes, I'm going to make you guys the Sisters of Love. He goes, we're going to tie it into the Headbangers. He goes, so one night you'll come out and wrestle as the Sisters of Love. He goes, and then right after that you'll come out and wrestle as the Headbangers. And then after a while we'll start putting it together. He had this big, elaborate, plan, all planned out and everything else. Oh my God, these guys are so crazy. They don't care what they're wearing. Look, they're wearing, flying headpieces, and now they're wearing, kilts and skirts and spitting on each other and everything else. and then the Catholic Church just got a hold of the Sisters of Love and just did away with that one really quick. Yeah.
I could imagine.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
So to answer your question, any gimmick that Vince comes to you and says, hey, I got this great idea, you're going to be like, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Whatever you want, sir. Yes,
you'd
absolutely.
almost have to be. You would almost have to be if he comes to you.
Yep.
You are always told in wrestling the most important matches on the card are the first match and the last match. You guys were part of a 4-man tag team to open up WrestleMania 13. What was it like to be in that spot to open up the card at WrestleMania 13, and what was it like to win at WrestleMania?
What? I mean, I get asked that question all the time. What was it like to be just being involved in WrestleMania? Now, mind you, we signed our part-time contracts in November of the year right before WrestleMania 13. So I guess it was, I want to say 1996 is when we signed our part-time contracts. I think WrestleMania 13 was in 97, or was it in 96?
97.
Whatever.
97, yeah, 97.
No, so we were still under our part-time contracts, and we just thought that we were going into we had no idea. We had no idea about, we knew how big WrestleMania was. That's when they did the Slammies and everything else. And me and Chaz were just like, you know what? We're going to go out and we're going to do everything and anything we can to have the time of our lives. And that's what the talent people at the office, they said, we want you guys to go out and be yourselves. Just go out and be crazy nuts and everything else.
Right.
So what everybody didn't see during the Slammy show is every time that we went to commercial, they would go dark in the dining room. Me and Chaz would stand up and start tossing rolls around the restaurant and stuff like that and everything. We start yelling at people, and then it just continued when we came back on camera. Who else is going to yell at Walter Payton? Emmett Smith, and then have him yell back at you. Was something else, and it was just, we just went out and had a lot of fun. We wanted to because you never know if you're ever going to have another WrestleMania moment.
Right.
And then that day when we found out that we were actually winning the match, I was beside myself, because you look all along, especially when I got really involved in the wrestling and really started enjoying it and stuff like that. You see the history of it, and then you look at it, and then now you're in it, and now you're winning it. I mean,
right.
You're winning WrestleMania, and the people that you're beating are legends that you've looked up to. I mean, it was crazy.
Right.
It was absolutely. It's hard to explain what it's like. That's like when people say, well, "What was it like when you won the tag team belts?" I can't. There's not enough. I see. I can't tell you.
Right.
It's just. It's like when you go see Tom Brady. What was it like to win the Super Bowl? Well, not this year, but last year. What was it like? How did it feel? He comes up going, I can't. It's impossible to put into words. The feeling and stuff like that. What it's like.
You guys were like one of my favorite tag teams, and I remember when y'all won the tag team
championship. Oh, you're just saying that because I'm on the phone.
No.
Come on.
Go back to 1996, 1997. I have a Headbanger shirt on. I was a big kid, so it was like a 2X. But they had a 2X Headbanger shirt on, and when you guys won, I was ecstatic because – in my mind, the wrestlers that I always pulled for never won anything. Like I was always so when you guys won the tag team titles, I didn't even watch that pay-per-view, and I had my friend call me and he's like, "Hey, the Headbangers just won the titles." I was like, "Shut up." No, because you guys were definitely the underdogs. You were in there against LOD, Owen and Davey, and the Godwins, who they were pushing pretty good at the time. And not that they weren't pushing you guys, but you guys were definitely the underdogs of those four teams, but you were my favorites. So I was ecstatic that you won the titles.
Yeah, we were too. And it was funny, too, because it was a time. It's something that I'll never forget. But it's the hardest thing to put into words and feelings and stuff like that. Just imagine your proudest moment and then times it by 10.
Right.
Awesome.
So it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. Do I wish we would have had them longer? Absolutely. Who doesn't wish they were tag team champs longer? But just to have the honor of having the biggest, most prestigious title in tag team wrestling at that time was the WWF tag belts. And to say, hey, we're going to give these to you guys.
Yeah. Right.
It was just, and then going on to win the NWA belts from Ricky and Robert, who are, Hall of Famers.
Oh, yeah.
And guys that we're extremely close to and everything else. And to have that, be part of, I guess I'm going to be full of myself, our legacy and everything else is just, it's unbelievable. I mean, I still sit here today, and like when I meet fans and talk to people and everything else, I'm no different than either one of you two. I put on my pants the same way. I just had a different job. I'm just a guy, I guess, that grew up with a single mother, that had to work 2 jobs and everything else. Right. And I don't see myself as a celebrity or a superstar or anything else like that.
Well, this will be our last question. You got to be around.
I will not make out with you, man. No, I'm here doing an interview.
I set it up so perfectly.
Jesus.
I said I was a fan. I have a 2X Headbanger shirt. Well,
Jesus, pull the lips off my ass.
You got to be around a true black belt in the art of ribbing, Owen Hart. Is there a rib that you saw Owen pull or heard about him pulling that really sticks out among the rest?
Well, I got 2 really good Owen stories. I'll make them really fast. When we first started, I knew Brett, I knew Owen from going up there and doing jobs and stuff like that. They remembered me from doing that. So that helped me not get all the ribs and stuff like that put on you. But if you ever left your bag close to somebody else's bag or, something else like that. So lo and behold, one night me and Chaz are going in the locker room, going to get our bags. They're padlocked together with a chair. There's a chair right through in the middle of our 2 bags. So we knew it was Owen because he's sitting there and he's sitting in the corner and he's just going, getting dressed. He's just laughing to himself and everything else. So we didn't sell it. We didn't, make a fuss about it or anything else. We just picked everything up. He carried one bag, I carried the other, and the chair just hung between us, and we just left. We traveled together, we stayed together, we did everything. So the next day we come to TV and everything else, we find a padlock, we uncut it off and everything else, and Owen goes, what? You're not going to say anything? We were like, no, because if we feed you, you're going to keep doing it to us. He goes, well, you guys are smart. So then there was one night we were down in Texas, and all the hotels were sold out, and Owen needed a ride. So we said to Owen, we were like, hey, listen, we're going to the TV hotel. Jump in with us, and you can see if you can get a room there. So we did. So we get there. There's no rooms available. Owen goes, yo, do you guys mind if I stay with you guys? Absolutely. You're Owen Hart. We're nobody. You're Owen Hart. This is when he was European champion, tag team champion, used to go to the ring with 2 slammies and everything else. So he had everything. And he was the best guy ever. So we get to the hotel and we're like, yeah, sure, absolutely. And so I go into the room, I'm going, oh, and you can have that bed. I'll just sleep on the floor and everything else. He's like, hell no. He goes, nope. He goes, just give me the blankets on top of the bed. I'll make a pallet in the corner and I'll sleep on the floor. We're like, oh, we can't do that. He goes, no, I insist. So he goes, all right, I'm going to go in, take a shower and everything else. But here he leaves his bags open. And there's the Slammy, there's the European title, there's the tag team belt and everything else. So he's in the shower, and he's taking a shower, and we can hear him in there. So, of course, what do? We grab the belts out of his bag and start jumping around the bed. Hey, look, we're champions. Just being total kids that we are. And then we hear the shower shut off, and we hurry up and put everything back and come out. And he comes out in the towel. We're, like, laying in bed and everything else. He looks at us. He looks at the belts. He looks back at us, and he goes, did you kids have fun jumping around the bed with the belts? And we're like, what are you talking about? We wouldn't do that. We wouldn't go in your bag. He goes, why do you think I left it open? I was like, damn, you got it. He just knew. But that's the kind of guy Owen was. Back then when we wrestled in Philly, that was our home area. He would actually, and I would bring my kids. I have 2 older kids that were actually around when we would wrestle. We would bring them to the arena and stuff like that. He would actually go in the cafeteria, and after we were done eating and stuff like that, he would sit there, color with them, and play with them and stuff like that. That's the kind of guy Owen was. He made you part of the family. I couldn't possibly find one bad thing that Owen ever did.
That's awesome.
Or ever said or anything else, like, at least to us. He was very open. He always asked us if we needed anything, gave us advice. Him, Brett, Davey, they were all like that with us. They were just awesome. And it was, still to this day I can, remember, losing him and going to his funeral and stuff like that. And just, it's probably the biggest loss that I've ever had to face in wrestling.
Right. Well, we had Brian Christopher on last month, and he was talking about the greatest rib he ever had was Owen pulling the parking brake on this certain type of car that he rented. And he's like, well, you can go faster, man. You can go faster. And then all of a sudden just grabs the parking brake in the middle and pulls it. And
I believe it.
Yeah, and he said that one day he got on Luchador mask from one of the Mexican luchadors that were there and went up behind Dan Severn, double-legged him, and just went 2 points and ran off. And then threw all the mask and stuff into this guy's gear, and Severn was pissed at the luchador because he thought he had shot on him in the back.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man, I tell you, we could talk all day to you.
All day.
We have all kinds of questions, but we know you got to get out of here. But, man, I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being with us today, man. No BS, no nothing like that. I'm not marking out too much, but – man, you were one of my favorite tag teams of all times. You were part of that with the Headbangers. We watched you through Memphis, through Smoky Mountain, through tapes that we had gotten. It's truly an honor to have you, man, and thank you for being so cool and being on with us.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me.
Score Big is the leading online marketplace for tickets to sports, concerts, theater, and family events.
Score Big allows you to purchase last-minute tickets to sold-out events. Also, the latest on sales of popular artists, teams, and productions. They'll get you in.
They safeguard your transaction with a 100% money-back guarantee under a secure checkout with interactive seat maps to guide your purchase.
And whether it's an Atlanta Braves game, Metallica concert, or a WWE event, they've got you covered.
Book your seats now at tinyurl.com/P3events.
That's tinyurl.com/P3events.
Florida Ticket Station. Florida. Your one-stop shop for discounted tickets on all of Orlando's best theme parks. Orlando. All of Orlando's local attractions. Orlando. All of Orlando's events. All of Orlando's local attractions, and so much more. They offer affordable tickets to Disney World, Mickey Mouse, Universal Studios, Back to the Future, SeaWorld, Legoland, everything is awesome, Busch Gardens, I don't know what that is, and so much more.
But seriously, Josh, they are licensed and insured with the state of Florida. So you can rest assured that your reservations are valid. Summer's coming and vacation time's right around the corner. So go to tinyurl.com/P3Florida and book your Orlando vacation today. tinyurl.com/P3Florida. P3 Florida. That's going to do it for this episode of P3 Radio. We hope to have you back next week for our interview with Dangerous Danny Davis, not to be confused with Nightmare Danny Davis from OVW and the Memphis territory. We're talking to Dangerous Danny Davis. He was the heel referee, one of the first people to do that, part of the Hart Foundation, really big around WrestleMania 3 and 4. and a great guy. He was super awesome to talk to, as well as Glen Ruth was, Headbanger Thrasher. We want to thank him once again for being a part of P3 Radio this week. If you want to follow us on Facebook, type in Pop Poncho on Facebook. Go to P3 Radio 1 on Twitter to follow us on Twitter, or send us an email at p3radio1@gmail.com. Well, that's going to do it for this week. Thank you once again. And for Josh Broadley, this is Richard Mulligan saying thanks and good night.